The project where we were then, where we are now, is dealing basically with the relation between Persia and modern-day Iran and the Western world. On the one part, it's a project that is concerned with history, but on the other, it's also a project that is concerned with the present. That means exactly that I'm using historical reference materials like old mosaics, archival materials, ruins, and juxtapose them also with the nowadays world. The idea to the project came a little bit out of the interest in antiquity as a source for studying old forms of government, for example, like an empire, because the Persian Empire was one of the first empires to last for a very long time, and that was not only due to military superiority, but actually due to diplomacy and to a very liberal and tolerant, or comparably liberal and tolerant politics concerning the religion and the identity and the culture of the people that belong to this empire. So that is on the one side, and on the other side I was actually motivated by a rather present development that concerns the images we have from Islam or from Islamic countries. What I'm interested in is showing that a conflict is always also displayed by signs. That means these signs can be like 2,000 years old, they can be 1,000 years old, but they can be also very present. So using these old materials and old references, or references to old materials, I try to create a narrative which is not immediately obvious because of its presentness. That means people would recognize that it's happening nowadays and would only judge it by nowadays standards. But I try to create a narrative that is seemingly historically, but where people can, can find the traces of what is happening today. Basically, I presume that there is no past. That is a bit simplified now, but what I mean more precisely is that the past is always a construction that we develop in the present. If I remember something, I do it actually now. It's not really a recalling of something that really happened or in the way it really happened, but it's actually a narrative that I create in this moment in my brain. So it's also a kind of a mechanical process. And this I would like also to compare a bit with our notion of history. If we look at history, we of course have certain facts that we relate to, but what we do is actually also creating a very present, a contemporary image. And being aware of that means that we also have to reflect it in the way we deal with the past. And that's the basic historical interest that goes beyond actually this specific work, and which means that we have to be very careful and rather look at history in a very analytical point of view. That's important because it helps us to be critical of all the narratives and all the instrumentalization that history is a part of, because I think every country in the world knows that history is something also very vulnerable that is being used by governments or by cultures, by societies, not in order to only tell a truth, but also in order to create the truth. And that's, I think, one of the most basic ideas of the work. But this object that appears in one of the films in the installation is quite interesting because it exemplifies the way things are not what they seem to be. And the story behind it is that approximately 1,500 years ago, when Persia was conquered and the Persians were not allowed to have a military but wanted to train, they camouflaged their military training. So they invented this coil as a training instrument. They used a shield, a sword and a bow. And what happened in the meantime is, of course, that so much time has passed that this is, of course, not a weapon anymore. But you can see the people training with it also in a kind of a spiritual way. So it's become a part of culture, and by thus it's not any threatening object anymore. And as much as this object's changed, also all the images of history that we have in our mind, of course, also change through history by time. And so this object is actually quite a nice example that something starts as one thing, but it can become a very different thing at the end.